Hi, this is Marty Schupak with Schupak Sports, and welcome to this session. This particular session on our YouTube channel is geared for coaches and parents of 8 to 12-year-old baseball and softball players. We did the same thing last week. I'm going to go over 5 or 6 drills. I may throw in a bonus drill. It should go about 20 to 25 minutes. And if you're not coaching or parent of 8 or 12-year-old, I still highly recommend stick around. You'll get some tips. First thing, let's get right into this, okay? I'm going to hold this up. And the reason I'm doing this, it's not necessarily go over a drill. I just want to show you that this is a base running drill. And what I do is I double up the bases. So there's bases on field, and you can see it better at second base. I put another base behind there, third base, and there's another base behind there. And you don't see it that great, but at first base, there's a base behind the base there. Now, as you see, there are 2 lines, okay? The reason I do this is mainly just to get more repetitions for the players. I'm a huge believer in running youth practices. I don't care the sport, not having players just standing around. So I find, and I'm going to have a session devoted to base running and strategies. But in this, as you see, I have 2 lines, okay? One there and one there. And by the way, everything that I'm doing is backwards because I want you to see it correctly. It took me about a month to figure out with Zoom, you have to click something that says mirror or unclick it. And when I unclick it, you get to see it correctly, but everything is a little screwed up for me. So case in point, when you are running drills, think in terms of how can you double up the repetitions so there are the least amount of players just standing around doing nothing. Again, this is an idea where I have throw down bases and I double up on the bases. This particular drill, you can see on top, it says read the sign drill. When we do our base running session and strategies, I'll get into that. Again, a little hint, I practice base running. If you want an edge over other coaches in baseball or softball, devote anywhere from 7 to 15 minutes of practice on base running and base running strategies. I promise you, you'll probably be the only one that's doing it. Most coaches, when it comes to base running, they just tell the players what to do from the third base coaching box. There's an incredible amount of difference in telling players what to do, 8 to 12-year-old players, and showing them what to do in a practice. Okay, so the choice is up to you. But again, I'll have a special session on base running and strategies. I'll show you how to get 1 to 2 extra runs per game. Okay, so that's the first item, not really a drill. The second one is the circle drill, and I'll hold that up as my producer says. Count to 2 Mississippi, and I'll fade back. And what I do on this drill is I have the players form a circle, and I throw in a ball, I bounce it in there, it goes to one player, he has to catch it, and he's got to throw it to another player. The only rule is he cannot throw it to a player next to him. It's got to be within the circle. And what you do here is you could count the number of catches without an error. That's number one. And another, another thing you could do here is you could form 2 circles of, let's say, 6. So if this has 12 players in, you could divide it up into 2 circles of 6 and have a competition. Another thing you could do is with 1 circle, you could, after they get used to catching the ball or working this drill with 1 ball, try it with 2 balls. In the middle of the exercise, when they're throwing it around with 1 ball, throw in another ball and see what the reaction is and see if they can continue without making errors. Another hint here also is, especially for the younger kids, again, this is for 8 to 12-year-olds. I like to do this with younger kids. Try to do it without gloves at the beginning. This way, they're forced to move their body to the ball. Okay, again, this is the circle drill. We're throwing grounders. A player could throw it to anyone within the circle except for the player next to him. You could set up as competition, as I said, 2 circles, or count the amount of balls thrown without an error. Kids love competition. This is a great drill after you practice a skill for a while. Okay, so that's the circle drill. Okay, moving on. And the next drill, and if you could see, let me hold this up close because you may not get a good view. It's from one of my first books. It's called the rapid throw drill. What I do here is I divide the team with partners. So if there are 6 pairs or 12 players on a team, there are 6 pairs. I move them about 15 to 20 feet apart. Each pair has a ball. Now, very important, it's not shown here because it's in a book, but they have to be spaced further apart. Very important, coaching youth ball players. You have to space them apart. The younger the players, the more space you need between them. And what I do here is each pair has a ball. On the go command, and I usually tell them that we're going to go for this for like 8 seconds to start. They throw it back and forth, and they have to see how many times they could throw it to each other or their partner without making an error. And at the end of the 8 seconds, I'll go to each pair and say, how many? They're on the honor system, okay? Couple of things. One of the things I do, I tell one of the lines to put one ball by their ankles. It's not shown here. What that is I'm giving each pair a second chance. You'll see that because these guys are hurrying, a lot of times the ball goes over their heads. So I don't want them to chase it. I just want them to pick up the backup ball and start from there. Now, if the backup ball goes over the head, then they're out of that particular round. Okay. What I do again, I'll start with a certain amount of seconds. And then after that, I'll increase the amount and I'll move the players back. I'll have one line. I'll say like this line, take 5 steps back. Okay, then we'll continue. There'll be a point where I'll start to tell players if they didn't make the cut, they have to sit down. The goal here is you want to see who could do it, get the most repetitions. One other hint, you don't want to put the 2 best ball players together. You don't want to put the 2 weakest ball players together. You want to try to make the pairs as even as possible. What this drill is also doing when they're doing it, you'll see the fact that they catch the ball and they have to get rid of it fast. They are automatically developing pretty good footwork, okay? And you want to make sure that the pair, you try to teach them, you want to give them a target about chest high. So they catch the ball and then they step and they throw it back to their partner. This is a great drill kids love, and they love the competition. So that's the rapid throw drill. Okay, moving on to the next drill. Okay, bear with me. A few years ago, I wrote a book. By the way, this is called Tag the Dirt. I wrote a book called 44 Baseball Mistakes and Corrections, and I think I might have mentioned it. What I found is every year the same mistakes would come up over and over again. And I took what I thought was the top 44. obviously there are more than 44 mistakes that come up. But one of the mistakes that would drive me crazy was if a player was going, let's say, from first to third on a hit, and the right fielder or the center fielder threw the ball to the third baseman, and it got there in plenty of time, he would put down the glove to make the tag. And for whatever reason, he would tag the player on the thigh. So, of course, the foot hit the bag before he tagged the player on the thigh, and the player was safe. It drove me crazy. I'll explain a drill that I thought of, and I will have a picture of that in my new book coming out. What I did was I set it up at third base where I had a coach with a kickball, and the players would line up at second base. And on the go command, I have another coach throw the ball to the player at third. He rolls the kickball. All right, this is without base runners, and he has to catch it and put the glove down and tag the kickball. What this is doing, it's forcing the players to tag the first part of the item that's coming into third. So if a player's sliding into third, really, it's their feet that are coming first. You want to teach players to tag the dirt and to have the players slide into the glove. Now, they have to keep their eye on the glove, and they have to move it if the feet are not going right into the center of the base. But the point of this drill is tag the dirt. Don't tag the player on the thigh, otherwise he'll be safe. Okay, so that's another drill. And the next drill I have is, it's kind of like a hitting drill, and it's called track the ball. And all I'm doing here is with a batter, and I have a pitcher and a catcher. I'm color coding balls, and I'm either doing that with a Sharpie, colored Sharpie, or what I think is better, I'm taking one of these, a colored circle that you could get at one of the big box office supply stores. And I'll put the circle, which is about a 1-inch diameter, on each side of the ball. So I'll have a ball that has 2 red circles, another ball that has 2 blue circles, and another ball that has 2 yellow circles. And I'll have about 3 or 4 balls of each in a bucket. And when the pitcher throws the ball to the catcher, the player with the bat has to track the ball. And as soon as he sees the color, he yells it out. So if he's watching the ball and he's tracking it and he sees it and he's following it and he sees it's red, he yells out red. Okay? We're forcing players or getting them conditioned to really focus on the ball. Okay? Sometimes players will get up there and they'll just swing the bat just to swing the bat. We want them to swing the bat where the ball is. While I'm talking about this drill, and I think I mentioned it, one of the things you could do for your team, and I learned the hard way, is make sure every player has a hearing test and an eye test. 2 players I had on my team, I changed their careers, and it actually helped my team by having them take an eye test, and they got fitted for glasses. To expand that, years ago, I'll tell you a quick story. The great coach, Vince Lombardi, his last year was coaching the Washington Redskins. I'm sure you've heard me tell this story before. He had a running back named Larry Brown that he thought was very talented, but he would watch the film over and over again, and he saw that Larry Brown was not getting off the ball on the count as quick as he thought he should. He had him tested for his hearing, and he found out in one ear he was legally deaf. He went to the NFL at the time to have a special speaker put into his helmet. He got permission, and he was a different running back. And he went on to, I think he led the NFL 2 or 3 times in rushing. So have your team take an eye test and a hearing test. It'll help them, I'll help you win games, I promise you. Okay, moving along. We're going to start to wrap this up. If you look on this, and I'll hold it up, towards the end of the year, I like to start playing home run derby. And I do it a little differently. Okay. And why I wait a little, not necessarily the end of the year, maybe the middle of the year. If I notice that practices are starting to get a little stale, this is a game that they love, but I do a little differently. If you look between the pitcher's mound and second base, I have two other bases. This base is for 12-year-olds. He's got a bat, according, that's his home plate. The middle base is for 11-year-olds, and second base, the closest to the outfield fence, is for the 10-year-olds. Okay. I never throw out baseballs. If they're waterlogged or the stitching is bad, I have a separate bucket and I use that bucket for home run derby. It's a great game. Players leave practice on a high, and what you're doing is you're giving the kids the experience of hitting the ball over the fence. Most of them will never hit it over the fence, and you really making the players feel good. What I also do towards the end of the year, I get a very old tennis racket. I play the same game, but I call this tennis racket home run derby. I use tennis balls, and they love this. It's a very popular game. Again, I do a lot of these games after I do like one or two skills, teaching them. All right. You have to give these players a break. They'll love these games and they'll be trying to get back to your practices, I promise you. Okay. And I'm going to wrap this up with a quick at-home drill. You do it at home or in a station. And what I do is I call this King Arthur. And you have the player hold either a broomstick or like a closet pole, 5 or 6 feet, and the coach or parent across him will have a bucket of, it has to be like wiffle balls, pickle balls, or rag balls, which I showed you how to make. As you throw it, he's got to try to hit it at the end of the stick. So his hands are not at the very end. So he's going like left, right, left, right, left, right, left. They love this game, and it actually really, I don't want to say it develops eye-hand coordination, but it exercises the player's eye-hand coordination. So this is a great at-home game, and kids really enjoy this. I know I played a lot of this in my backyard with my kids too. And if you don't have a backyard, if you're in an inner city, and I've said this before, you could do this game very easily. Again, and I mention this almost every time, when I was a young kid, our parents took us to see our grandparents in Brooklyn, New York, and my grandparents lived in an apartment. Didn't matter. We would play in the backyard, in the courtyard. They had a runway where people left their garbage, and they had a courtyard about 20 feet wide by about 75 feet long. We just spent hours there doing everything. So don't let your environment inhibit you from doing any of the drills I'm showing you. And if you can't do some of the drills, create them. There's no excuse not to. So I'm going to wrap that up for today. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you a little tip. Again, I like to touch upon parenting. I know this is early, but there's going to be a time when your son and or daughter is going to want to start looking at colleges. One of the best times I ever had in my life was taking each of my kids on the journey to look at schools. We spent 1 or 2 nights on the road, and I recommend you divide it up with your wife. You do it one-on-one. There's just something about it. And it's a good time because you're going to have some incredible bonding right before they go away to school. The other thing is, if you do this, and I told my daughter, and I just thought of it, to wear a sweatshirt from your high school. And she did. She went to Nyack High School, so she wore Nyack high school, or she was on the track team where she put her Nyack cross country and Nyack track. And one of the schools we went to visit, a young lady came up who was I guess a junior, and started talking. And she turns out she went to the same high school. Long story short, I walked about 15 feet away, let them talk. And my daughter came up to me and she said, Dad, it turns out that Allison and we were on the track team together when she was a senior and I was a freshman. I said, oh, that's amazing. And she said, do you mind? She said that she would take me around for about 1 or 2 hours and show me the campus and would have lunch with me in the dorm. I said, no, go ahead. So it worked out great. I had like part of an afternoon off. So when you go visit colleges, try to do it one-on-one, one parent, divide them up. I'm telling you, it works out great. And have your son or daughter wear a sweatshirt or t-shirt from the high school she went to. I guarantee if you go to 2 or 3 or 4 schools, you'll have at least 1, maybe 2 people come up that went to the same high school. Okay, products, I think I covered almost everything. I recommend, let's take these 2 books. Baseball Chronicles is one book I wrote, different articles, just to give you an idea. And I'll have a link down at the bottom. Here's an article, teaching young players to catch fly balls, baseball creativity in your own backyard, getting kids to practice on time, 4 things coaches should practice but don't, practicing when no field's available. So this one has 21 articles. I'll put a link down on the bottom of the page. After that worked out, some people wanted more, so I wrote Baseball Chronicles 2. A couple of articles here. Overcoaching in youth baseball, tips for catchers in youth baseball, infielders' 5 most common mistakes. Every article is no more than like 1,200 words. This one has, again, 21 articles. So these 2 books, Baseball Chronicles and Baseball Chronicles 2, I'll put at a link. If you don't have the money, I don't want you to spend the money. Go to your library. If you're part of Amazon with their ebook deal, I think you could read these for free. If you do end up buying it, I appreciate it. Another item, Bobby Woods, one of the best hitting instructors I ever met. He helped me, and he helped a couple of players of my team become high school stars, and a couple of them went on to college. Hitting drills and techniques, I'll put a link down there. It's free on Hoopla, which is your video program through your library, and I'll mention that too. So that's it for today, and I'm working on a famous person for an interview for next week, and I'll see if I could do it. But I want to ask you if you could do me a favor right now as you're watching this. I want to keep doing this as long as you feel there's a need for it. If you like it, please click the like button. And if you can, please forward this or share it to people in your league or parents in your league if you think it'll be helpful. If you don't think it'll be helpful, then you could do a George Costanza. Just tell them, do the opposite of Marty Schupak. But anyway, that's about it today. I want to thank you, and I will see you at third base. Until next time, this has been Marty Schupak.